All right. Well, welcome. Good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for a community conversation on special education. We are so happy that you are here tonight to engage in a conversation with our superintendent. But before we get into the presentation, just want to go over a few things on what you can expect from tonight's community conversation. If you haven't had a moment, please stop by our information and resources table. We have staff who are at the table, wave, who are ready to provide you with information. So that's available to you throughout the evening. We're going to start, of course, with a presentation and conversation with Dr. Rogers. We also have our executive director, and I saw her, but she disappeared. There she is. Allison Myers, please stand, executive director of special education. Thank you, Allison, for being here. She's going to talk you through a lot of the really amazing things that are happening in the Department of Special Education. My name is Boyende Onijala, and I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Communications and Community Outreach. And again, we're just so grateful that you took time out of your very busy schedules to join us for what I know will be a really good conversation about special education services and what we can do as a system to continue to support you. So you'll see on the table feedback cards. If we do not get to your question tonight, please write down your question. We will be coming around to collect those questions. And I was informed that the special education team has also put together another feedback form where you can check specifically the support area and what am I trying to say? Support areas that you need more information on and who you need to connect with. That information you can write down right on this form, and we will collect that as well. Following the presentation, we will have a time of group discussion where you respond to 3 questions, take notes. We will then walk around, have you all report out on what you've discussed. Following that share out, you will have an opportunity to ask Dr. Rogers and Ms. Myers questions directly about special education services, and then we will send you all home so you can go have dinner with your families and get some rest and get ready for tomorrow. So I think I covered the agenda for the evening, so I want to invite Dr. Rogers up, and let me just make sure, do we have any Board of Education members, elected? You were hiding, Ms. Pumphrey. I did not see you. Please stand. Christina Pumphrey, member of the Board of Education. Thank you so much for joining us. Do we have any other board members, elected officials? And I just want to give a shout out to the Department of Special Education, Early Childhood. There's so many staff members here. Please wave so our families can see that you are here and ready to support and answer their questions. So thank you all for being here tonight. So Dr. Rogers?
Good evening, everyone. Oh, nice response. Really excited that you've come back to join us to engage in this conversation around special education. As you guys know, for the last 2 years, we've shared with the community at large 4 priorities for the school system. 4 priorities starting with academic achievement, which is why we exist. And we know that there are 3 other areas that we have to work on in order to actualize progress in academic achievement for all of our students. But as we've drilled down specifically in the area of academics, we identified 4 specific areas. Literacy, which is the foundation for everything that our students learn, followed by mathematics or the skills in numeracy, meeting the needs of our multilingual learners, as well as meeting the needs of our students receiving special education services. I'm excited about this opportunity to meet with you again because this is probably our 3rd or 4th convening, and every time, parents, you have provided us with some specific feedback about what your needs were, what your experiences are that have allowed us to move forward. The Board of Education made a significant investment in students receiving special education services last year that was directly related to your feedback. When you spoke about your experiences as parents having elementary school age students, that you didn't have a specific point person to speak to, someone to walk you through that process, someone that you could communicate with back and forth about implementation, that let us know that we needed to really invest in IEP facilitators. And we're excited that we have an IEP facilitator facilitator in every single one of our elementary schools to meet the needs of our youngest learners. I'm not going to go into too much depth because Ms. Myers will share some of the other significant investments that we've made for students receiving special education services. If you've been listening to information around this FY26 proposed budget, you'll see another significant investment proposed for special education of over $23 million to really meet the needs of our students, to continue to build on the progress that we've made to date, and to make sure that students have everything that they need to continue to make that progress. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Myers. She'll walk you through some updates. And as Ms. Onijala said, we're really interested in engaging with you, you having an opportunity to engage in conversation and share information with us that's going to help us to continue to move forward.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here with you all, and as Dr. Rogers shared, we really want to be able to hear from folks tonight. So this will be a brief, somewhat overview of the work that we're doing, and we want to be able to provide time for everyone to be able to chat with each other and then provide us feedback. So just an overview of our vision, mission, and our belief statements. These are posted throughout the room in several spaces. To highlight our vision as a department is that all students receiving special education services are embraced by their school communities and achieve their goals in school and life. And while I say that's department, that's also the vision of special education for our system. And then those beliefs that we really hold strong to are how we guide our decision making. So as you see our belief statements, I encourage you to review those as you walk around and hold us to that with regards to what we believe about special education in our system. Again, this is the strategic roadmap. I'm sure this has become familiar to lots of you. This is that one pager that outlines what we're doing with regards to special education. Everything comes back to this. That has our vision, mission, belief statements, the overall results at the top of what we're looking for when we meet our expectations as a system around special education. And then under our people, our services, and our culture, the various strategies that we have committed to undertaking and moving forward over this period of time. For FY24 and 25, we prioritize some more specific. So while we start with our overall roadmap, we then look to our specific strategies as to how we're going to be carrying out this work. To highlight a few here, professional development, you'll hear me talk about that in a minute. Obviously, the budget that Dr. Rogers highlighted as far as the board has been amazing with supporting this budget, both last year with what we've been able to achieve, and then this year we're hoping to continue to be able to move forward. Really looking at our work with our teachers, families, caregivers, and partners to increasing awareness of services and resources. We hear loud and clear from families that you want information, you want to be meaningful participants in the team process. You want to be valued in the decision making around your child. That is our commitment to be able to continue to expand and provide you those opportunities. As far as our people, also highlighting that for our special educators and related service providers, really wanting to work together around analyzing and working on workload for folks, really hearing that. So these are some areas that we'd like to highlight as far as the areas we're working, that we have accomplished in work, and those that we're continuing to work towards. So people, services, and culture is our priority. Dr. Rogers spoke about IEP facilitators and those being in every school building. Increased special educators was part of our budget request for last year that was able to come to fruition, which is fantastic. Schools some schools were able to have some increase in special educators, and that's also part of the budget request for this year, specifically looking as we build out some of our transition programs for our students in our 18 to 21 years of age. Early childhood expansion, excited to have our Department of Early Childhood here tonight. I'm sure we've heard as far as the expansion of pre-K opportunities, the opportunity for inclusive options for our kiddos so that they're as close to their home school as possible or in their home school for our kids from our youngest learners. We are committed to that. Related services, I'll highlight this, all for our providers. We acknowledge where we've been as a system with the needs for related services. It absolutely is an area that we know there's a critical shortage, and we are committed to our related service providers, figuring it out with them, and to families as far as wanting to ensure that those related services are provided and that we're ensuring that access to the services that they need. Professional learning. Professional learning is critical to everything that we're doing. Professional learning to every staff member that touches a child with receiving special education services and not is where we are focused on professional learning. Wanting to ensure that our general educators have the strategies, our additional adults, our bus drivers, our special educators, our related service providers, our principals. We've had the opportunity to really be able to touch, as I said, really all of the humans that interact with your child, and we will continue to do so in that commitment to professional learning to ensure that folks have the strategies in order to make a difference with regards to outcomes for our students. Excited about our family resource fairs. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to visit one of those resource fairs. They occur in one of the geographic areas every quarter. And beyond the resource fairs, there's just a lot. We've had podcasts, we've had opportunities, newsletters, and parent support groups. If you haven't had the opportunity to participate in any of those, I highly encourage you to stop at our parent resource area. Go ahead and wave again over in that space because they have all of the opportunities there. Sign up. We want to be able to get you the information you need. So please feel free to share your contact information so that we can get that to you. There's a ton of work going on with parent and caregiver resources, and we want to make sure that we're getting it to folks. And then finally, as far as the work is support for non-public, we do know that there are students that have their needs met beyond our local school. And with that also costs money. And we've committed to, obviously, that's our continuum of services, that we know there are students that have needs that are beyond our Baltimore County schoolhouses, and how we then are able to support that, both through our team that supports those schools and students, as well as supporting the tuition needs there. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Omajala. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Okay, so now we're going to have an opportunity for conversation at your table, responding to the 3 questions, prompts that you see on the screen. What is BCPS doing well as it relates to special education services that you would like to see us continue? Do you have any specific suggestions for enhancements the system can make to improve special education services? And then are there any additional resources or supports that would be helpful for parents and caregivers? Members of the team are going to walk around and provide each table with chart paper. And we ask that you all select a spokesperson, a note taker, and as you're discussing these 3 questions, you're taking note of what the group is saying. We want to hear from all members of the group. And then in about 10, 15 minutes, we'll come back together and we'll walk around and have you all report out on what you discussed. As you're reporting out, we're taking notes. Dr. Rogers is taking notes. She's going to respond to what she's heard. And then following that, we'll open it up for general questions about special education services. So you should be receiving a piece of paper soon for you all to take notes as you have conversations about these 3 questions. And if you need any assistance, please reach out to any of the staff members who are in this room, and there are a lot of us. So thank you so much, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning and then a 2-minute warning. Thank you. Okay, I do want to recognize board member Maggie Dominowski. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. All right, let's grab a seat so we can start the reporting out process. So we will come to the tables, myself and Charlie Herndon. Charlie, could you wave? We're going to come to each table. Please pick one spokesperson to report out on the 3 questions. Just judging by the conversation that was happening, I know that there's a lot to share. We ask that you limit 1 to 2 things for each question. The reason why we're asking you to do that, not because we don't want to hear, we want all of this feedback, and we are going to collect all of the chart paper and pieces of paper, is there's a lot of you in this room tonight. So we want to honor that and make sure we get to every table. So if you can keep your comments as concise as possible, that will ensure that we hear from all of the groups that are represented here. So we'll start with you, Charlie, in the back.
Okay, so we, for each category? Okay, so we discussed that we have improved in areas that we do well, which is family support. that we have improved in special education and providing information to families and listening to what families need and with that, we have provided the resources and support. Is that enough?
Yeah, you could do 1 or 2 bullets for each question. Just do it quickly.
Okay. So as for enhancements that we discussed, we shared that it would be an area that all teachers an area is for teachers to be following the 504 IEP accommodations in the classroom. We have that behavior management in the classroom. That is an area that needs to be improved on. As for resources, community resources, but then we did discuss that we have, with a family resource supervisor, that we have that office that we have, that we want to make sure that we kind of share that information with families.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to come to you. Are you a spokesperson? Okay.
For what do we do well, we said having these types of forums to have our voices heard is really, really refreshing, and as a parent feels very good to have that opportunity to be able to voice our concerns. For suggestions and improvement, we were talking about having access to parent advocates and resources and maybe more advertisement for the family support services, because like on our side of seeing as parents, like we're not sure where to find this information. And maybe like a better system for screening in early childhood, like elementary age, like especially kindergarten, for kids who come in with special needs, and then maybe end up waiting the whole year before an IEP is set into place for them, and kind of like supporting as far as like more staffing for kindergarten teachers who might have large class sizes of undiagnosed special needs learners at that point. And for additional resources and support, kind of touching in with the improvements, but more info for parents about their rights, the process of the IEP system, and making it user-friendly for all parents to kind of understand.
Thank you. Charlie?
All right, so here at this table, we talked about, in terms of what BCPS does well, we said that they are getting better identifying kids that need help and pushing for better school communication between families and teachers and administrators. Number 2, we talked about training staff properly and making sure that there's better knowledge for parents. There are a lot of parents that don't know about the process, how to start the process, what the process entails, things like that. Making sure those parents have that knowledge going into the process and not once they're already in it. And then 3, a broader range of resources and vendors. Disabilities need to do more vendors. So just having more vendors, more resources, more things available so families know about it. I will add one thing. I think also just doing a better job of educating students. I think the kids need to know what they have and what resource they have and what's in their IEP so that they can advocate for themselves. So I think that's a better job with that. So.
Thank you. All right, who's my spokesperson? Okay, I'll come around to you.
So our group said having a facilitator at every school has been really beneficial. We have a direct line to resources within the Department of Special Ed for support, and we get really quick feedback from that. And then as far as enhancements, more related services, the actual providers in the building, and then also knowing a transparent continuum of services for students and having a array of a continuum of services, as well as the behavior support for our AAs and staff that work directly with those students side by side throughout their entire day. And then for additional resources for parents, we talk a lot about different resources at our school, but just having a general knowledge of like resources for students with autism, such as the autism waiver and things like that. And then also what camps or extracurricular activities are available for students, because oftentimes the ones that are in the community may not be what they need, but giving them that opportunity to be a part of something as well.
Thank you so much. Charlie.
Oh, do you hold it? Yeah. Okay, you hold it. Yeah, so our group believes that we are doing well at hiring excellent ed staff, and that we have excellent IEP facilitation and collaboration going on at BCPS here in this program, and we think that should continue. We do also have increased hiring good ed staff as a suggestion, so more of what we're already doing really well is a suggestion. We'd like to see increased help for dyslexic students, early intervention and increased training for staff to help with those goals, increased resources for ensuring functional readers, so that we are not, I think the term was pushing through, and anything else on education? Oh, so educating parents regarding their rights. I have seen this, so there was, ESOL was mentioned. We have a lot of, students and families who may or may not be prone to asking about their rights. And so it is our responsibility to try to educate families as to what those rights are, particularly where special education intersects that group, because communication can be difficult for these students. And so it compounds. And on the miscellaneous side, with the additional resources, I took a big swing and said, would love to see updated devices for students who use eye gaze as a form of communication.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, you got it. All right, hello. For the first one, the thing that we liked was the fact that, along with everybody else, the IEP facilitators being in the actual schools, and then the actual therapists and therapeutic services and the providers themselves, they are actually quality, and you can see that they actually generally care about their job and whatnot. And then the next piece I want to see improved is things like standardization of best practices at each school that we have from the county level and how they're implemented down to each individual school. Things that work well at one school, how can we get those good best practices implemented at other schools, to include like things like homeschool, communication journals, and data collection. And then sometimes it's hard to understand at the county level what is the actual requirement for special educators. So we had, like this year, we got an increase in the budget of special educators, but what is the actual requirement? So how close are we to meeting that goal? And then does that requirement allow for actual hours for planning and administration hours to collaborate between the general educators and the therapeutic service providers? And then the last one is things we do better is things like equitable class supplies lists. So you're not buying supplies for every child in the classroom, but then your child can't use the skinny markers, so you got to go out and buy your own pencil grips, things like that. And then at the end of the year, could we get better getting opportunities for our children to transition to the next grade, things like meeting the next teacher they're going to have for the next year, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Okay. You gonna hold it?
I'll hold.
Oh, it's okay. Go hold it. I'm fine. Hello, everyone. So we discussed several. I need to look at the question up there.
Need to move at it?
Yes, I could hold the mic. I'm fine. I prefer holding it myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, everyone, good evening. What does BCPS does well as it relates to special education service that you would like to see continue? Well, we discuss So far, keeping families informed and involved is something very important that needs to continue. And also, the family support that we see that occurs needs to continue. And do you have any specific suggestions for enhancement? Okay. So far, I've noticed lately a lot of behavioral support personnel has been hired, and also AAs. That needs to be continued, and for teachers to get more assistance in the classroom, because at times there's not enough. This is from personal experience, and so the children can't get individual attention. And training would need to be implemented for parents, because as you all know, the teacher can only do so much, but also the parents need to help in order for progress to be made. Okay, and also early detection of special needs issues, and the people that go and do assessments from Department of Education needs to come more often, as going once every 3 months or so cannot give an idea of how a child is really doing or performing. And I must
Thank
say,
you.
I'll say this personally.
Thank you. If you could wrap up your point, because we have a few more tables to get to.
Just one thing I'd like to say. Early detection is necessary. My son attends Martin Boulevard, and the first week of preschool, he received assistance. We need that for our children.
Thank you. Thank you.
welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to answer the 3 questions just in one paragraph. At this table, we discuss the importance of inclusion, and we will love for that to continue. We will also appreciate having more time for the speech classes. Additionally, we would like to see extracurricular activities such as equine therapy and sports. Lastly, we believe it is essential to continue educating the other students in the school so they can better understand and respect their peers with special needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping it concise. All right.
Oh, okay, thank you. For the first one, we were lucky enough to have SLP with us, who said she has amazing relationships with her families, and that makes it a very positive outcome. We also thought that community conversations like this are very helpful and gets everybody talking, but more dialogue is needed. For number 2, for enhancements, we thought definitely better communication, ensuring compliance, and also, like another group said, parent advocates, because the parents do not have time to make this their full-time job to learn everything. And then for number 3, for additional supports, we said transparency and accountability, and when the kids aren't meeting those goals and closing the gaps, who is held accountable and how are we getting those kids to close those gaps? And then one other item was, I added at the last second, transitioning the kids from elementary to middle school and what special ed is looking like and how it's gonna look when they transition over, because there's no communication going on, whether it's with dyslexia, reading, speech. The parents are left wondering what's gonna happen.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
We said that right now BCPS is doing well at recognizing that there are some areas of weakness and like assigning more staffing positions. We would like to have them further some of these expansions, but they also did a really good job of having different programs available. So the different types of classes, FALS, CALS, SCALS, PS, FALS, I don't know, all the acronyms. We think that we could do better with streamlining communication, specifically related to like the IEP writing system, resources that are available. We talked about how transportation has been a bit of an issue with buses arriving late. This affects all special ed students, not just those in our certificate track classes, but also diploma bound. When the bus shows up half an hour late, we've missed a half an hour of instruction. And then making sure that the staff compensation relates to the tasks that we're being asked to do, especially when we're dealing with our neediest learners. And then we said that some of the things that could be provided are additional resources for families that are easier to access and a little bit more clearly translated specifically for Spanish families, but I know there's a lot of languages in the county. And then post-secondary preparation programs for after high school.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so one of the things we said that BTPS is doing well is having the IEP facilitator. Definitely a huge support with compliance and getting timelines met and completing paperwork, which is always nice. Some of the things we talked about for specific suggestions is some of the informal testing that we do, such as like Amira and Dibbles and all of those kind of things, aren't super accessible to kiddos with IEPs. We talked about requirement and better training for AAs, not just like the modules that they're required to do, but more like in-person, hands-on training for them. Better accountability, reactive systems instead of proactive, so putting kids and having them fail before we can like really make some change. Additional resources for severe behavior management for like eloping and physical aggression and all that fun stuff. And then access to additional materials such as like cube chairs and scoop chairs and all the sensory needs.
Thank you so much. Okay. I think this is our final table here. Okay. All right. You've got this.
All right, at our table, we said that for number one, that we thought that it was great that we had more EP facilitators in the school. On number two, we thought that there should be more programs to support students closer to home, more in-person related service providers, and staff-to-student ratios. For number three, we said that we thought there should be more support materials in the school for the parents, access to those things.
Great. Thank you. All right. Did we miss any tables? Okay. I think we got it all. Dr. Rogers?
I'll check your notes after. All right. Well, good evening, and thank you for engaging with each other and reporting out, sharing with us not only the successes and things that are working well, that signals to us we need to continue to move forward, but also identifying areas where you feel that we need to provide some more resources. And so I was taking notes as well as Miss Charlie Green, so I'll try to go through this list as quickly as possible, chunking some things so we can have an opportunity to open it up for some additional questions. One of the themes that you shared was making sure that all teachers were essentially implementing what was in the IEP or 504 plans with fidelity. We have had a focus, we started last year on professional learning for our staff to make sure that we level set what high quality instruction looked like for every student. And our central office staff spend the majority of their time in schools. And when I say majority of their time, I'm talking about 70% and above. They're in schools working side by side with teachers. They're in school monitoring our curriculum to see that that's what we're actually delivering to our students. When we're talking about students receiving special education services, we're looking to see implementation of the IEP strategies. That is a responsibility, as someone else said, not just of the special educator in the room, but also of the general educator in the room. And that has been a mindset shift that we have been working on for the last year, making sure that everyone knows it's a shared responsibility to meet the needs of our students receiving special education services. I did hear come up a few times, access to parent advocates, resources, particularly since many of our parents are working full-time, and because there are so many parameters, there are so many requirements around special education services, that does make me think about whether or not we can create a cadre of people who would like to be advocates to provide that training, partnering with an outside group. So that is something we'll certainly take back. Someone talked about a shorter screening process for our youngest learners so they don't spend several quarters being identified. There are two sides to that argument. There's the side that wants to address disproportionality and wants to make sure, particularly students who haven't had an educational experience ever, that there aren't just some things that come with getting used to schools, the routine, and just providing that high quality instruction before a label is placed on a student. But I also understand when parents talk about the earlier that we provide those services, the earlier that we're able to see progress. So really, we try to meet somewhere in the middle and balance those two. Sorry, the phone started ringing. Balance both of those two opposing points of view to do what's in the best interest of the student. Staff training, as I mentioned, we have, as a school system, really reinvested in staff training for all of our employees, not only throughout the school year, but also in the summer. Last summer, we had over 4,500 teachers and paraprofessionals that came to the training. Our para educators are a part of our training. Our AAs, based on your feedback, are a part of the training, and we're going to continue to invest in that. More related service providers. In the proposed FY26 budget, there is a line item for additional related service providers. As you know, there's a national shortage. We use a hybrid model using virtual as well as face-to-face, prioritizing our youngest learners and our regional programs for the face-to-face of some of our related service providers, and really looking at those opportunities to bring in college graduates who are interested in becoming eventually a related service provider, to make sure they have the experience in the classroom, and to work with them through cohorts, university partners, so we can help to grow our own. That's one of the areas that we're looking at. Training for parents. I know that Ms. Myers will talk about the resources that we've provided for that training for parents, but trying to find a way from your feedback to make sure that that's more accessible in a way that everyone has the information and everyone can participate in the training that we provided is something that we will take back. Transitioning, a parent wanting to know what does it look like to move from elementary school to middle school for a student receiving special education services, as well as middle school to high school. Assuming we certainly have internal programs, but how do we make sure that as part of that spring IEP team meeting, that is a conversation that is had at the table, and if necessary, that there is a visit planned so that not only the parent but also the student knows what to expect moving to the next level. So that is great feedback for us to take back to our Department of Schools. More compensation. Definitely heard that, but it's important for us to note that while more compensation is a part of our proposed FY26 budget, we have also shared that we are continuing to monitor what's happening at the state level and how changes at the federal level will impact us and our funding. And so we certainly are in support of all of the people that come together to work on behalf of our students, which is why we had a 3-year compensation agreement so people could really focus on the students and not about, their next year and what that compensation looks like. But these are some changes that were not predicted. We were predicted, as a matter of fact, to receive more than twice the amount of funding from Blueprint. Instead of the 1.7% we're receiving this year, we were supposed to receive 5%, which would have made it very easy to move forward with those compensation packages. We all now know that that is not the case in terms of what's moving forward, but we still remain committed to compensating our staff members as a priority, but want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of some of the fiscal challenges that we, as well as all other school systems, are facing right now. We will continue that training for our adult assistants, as I shared. More programs closer to home. We have made significant progress in returning students to home schools, as well as creating regional programs as close as possible to home schools as possible, to make sure that we have fewer transitions for our students receiving special education services, and that we're fostering community from a very young age. I did also hear about activities, making sure that we have more activities that are available and appropriate extracurricular activities specifically. And so that's something that we will take back. I'm taking a quick glance at Ms. Charlie Green's notes. And I think the only other thing that's here is around accountability for IEP goals and moving forward with that. The IEP document in and of itself, the reason it has goals is for us to go back and check those measurements and make sure as a team there are decisions made about those next steps. I think Ms. Myers can talk to some of the new dashboards that we've created for accountability, not only that we're out there in the schools, but what are we doing when we're out there in the schools? And then when you triangulate that with student outcomes on their IEP plans, those are some of the new ways that we're really monitoring what's happening on a daily basis inside of our schools, and how central office is supporting the work in schools and responding when there are requests for help and assistance on a regular basis. So I want to see if there's anything you want to add before we open it up to any general questions. No, you're. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's open it up. Ms. Onijala, want to take at
And
least a few
before we
questions.
do that, just a quick review of some house rules. Please do not take the microphone away from us. We know that sometimes you get the microphone and you get excited and just have a lot you want to say, but there are a lot of people in this room, so please honor that we will hold on to the microphone. Keep your question as concise as possible. We ask that you do not share specific student information. If you have a concern about your child, there are so many staff members. Can you raise your hand again in this room, ready to assist you? For your child's privacy, again, we ask that you do not disclose student-specific information so that we can ensure their safety. With that, I saw this hand shoot up so fast.
You were first.
We are going to get started right here.
There's one thing that was mentioned that you didn't bring up, but it's okay. It was only mentioned once. Transportation. Who holds
yes.
Baltimore County responsible? My daughter's special needs transportation hasn't had a driver for 2 years. Every single day it's a substitute driver. On many occasions, I have
Raise your hand, Janet.
She has a tracker.
Turn around. Raise your hand. We're going to make a connection right now to address that. Ms. Teeter.
Yeah. Oh, should I go over there?
Yeah, go for it. All right, Charlie.
So I'm a SLP, and I know we have a national shortage, and there's, we have a lot of vacancies. And I would just really want to know what we're doing for recruitment, because I can tell you at this point, the expectation is really that the SLPs at the building with vacancies are doing the work of 2 people, and we're tired. And we want to use some weekends and some evenings not doing all the things that we need to get done.
So in terms of recruitment, first of all, thank you for being an SLP. I definitely appreciate the work that you're doing. As you've indicated, there's a national shortage for recruitment. The Human Resources Department is going beyond the traditional face-to-face recruitment, reaching out to universities. There are also virtual opportunities. We are advertising in a variety of spaces. We are on LinkedIn, we're on Handshake, we're on The county government has helped us with some recruiting efforts. Respective associations have helped us with recruitment. I think everyone has shared different venues and different methods for recruitment that we've have tried. We're certainly open to some more ways, so if you have any specific suggestions about organizations that maybe we haven't tried that you think are helpful, we'd be happy to do that. One of the new things that we're talking about are undergraduates that don't yet, that have identified that they want to eventually become a speech and language pathologist, trying to find a way to get them into the pipeline, into the school system. They can work through our cohort program to earn the credentials that they need to be a speech and language pathologist and already be here so we can grow our own. But if there's anything else that you would like to suggest, we would certainly be open to that.
We actually have staff at the CEC, so Council for Exceptional Children, right tonight. The last 3 days, we have folks there. Hi, sorry. We have folks there recruiting for both any part of related services, special education, all of it. So that's one of the things that we had the opportunity. It's in Baltimore this year, so we're really hoping to get some folks out of that as well.
So that was the Council of Exceptional Children for everyone. Council of Exceptional Children.
Good evening. Could you speak to the possible impact that the Department of Education is going through right now, and what that could mean for the county and the state with the IDEA Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, now coming under fire?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. I wish I could speak to it with some detail, but really I can't. What I can share with you is almost on a daily basis, we're receiving an update. We're receiving a briefing and how any decisions impact schools. We do know that there's a lot of conversation around reductions in funding, but we don't have anything specific at this time. IDEA is a law, and there are requirements in terms of supporting our students receiving special education services. We are really in a wait and see posture in terms of the federal government funding that comes. As a reminder to everyone, about a little less than 8% of our budget is federal funding. The majority of our budget is funded from local and the state. In terms of the state, the governor had put out a proposed budget, and in his proposed budget, there were cuts to the school systems. One of the areas in particular was special education. It was around non-public placements, reduction. We advocated very strongly against that. Myself and several other colleagues, superintendents across the state of Maryland, we testified at the budget hearing. A new fiscal note has been shared. We see things moving in the right direction. We don't yet have final numbers, but I think it's safe to say that the message has been shared, and there is evidence that we see from the governor's office of reviewing some of these proposed cuts and the impacts that they will have on students that are sitting in our seats. And so that one, we have a little much more pulse on what's happening there as opposed to at the national level, but it's something that we're monitoring on a regular basis.
Hey, my question was in reference to non-public placement. Go figure, huh? So that process should be a little more seamless for families, because a lot of families are not able to exercise it even though they request it, and then when they get in IEP meetings, they're kind of like danced around to not accessing that resource, which could be extremely helpful for their child and other students. So what are we looking at? Because I know it was cuts to it, but how can we make that more seamless for families?
So I can have Ms. Myers speak to how to make the process more seamless. As I stated, the governor's budget proposed some cuts. The updated fiscal note is showing some revisions in that area. It's also important to note with non-public placements, last year the legislator put in a requirement that there is parity between public and non-public schools in terms of the compensation for staff. And so, the first part of your question, as I understood it, around cost, those costs have increased significantly across the state as a result of that law that was put in place last year. But the process part, I'll let Ms. Myers speak to that.
I'm actually going to offer to you also the person sitting right next to you as our non-public supervisor. So she's going to be able to give you the best answer to that question. But just, I do want to clarify that non-public place, it's part of our continuum of services, right? So it's actually, you'll hear it technically private separate day as part of a continuum. So while our students, we think of LREA is our students are all inside of general education, and we go through that continuum to students that need some time outside of gen ed and sometimes inside gen ed. We have our public separate day schools that are also for students who, there are no general education peers in those. And then we have our private separate days. It is part of the continuum, and it's something that the IEP team would consider depending on progress and the needs of the student. So again, I'm going to encourage you to talk to Ms. Crow sitting right next to you about your specifics, and we can go from there. But just for everyone as well as the continuum.
Is BCPS doing anything to address some of the language barriers that we have for families, specifically students who maybe are nonverbal but are living in a multi-language household or receiving English instruction while Spanish at home? I know the translation system is very flawed, the over-the-phone thing. We used to have physical translators in the building. Could we go back to that, or have? I know there's a very nice lady over here translating. Can we get more people like her in buildings? She seems fabulous.
I think Ms. Harden is over there translating, and she absolutely is fabulous. I would concur with that. I would point you to one tool that we've had for 2 years that families have provided a lot of positive feedback on, and that's talking points, not what you're talking about, the other call through the phone and someone saying, yeah, not that one. Talking Points provides that access for families directly. You can text, or you can, share your message in one language. It comes back to the language of the recipient, and people have, there's a lot of usage for that. I think Ms. Myers could speak to anything additional that we're doing, but that's one of the areas that we've heard from families that have provided them with increased access.
As far as for students who are nonverbal, depending on what their communication method is, whether that's low-tech assistive technology or higher-tech assistive technology, but we do have a variety of things depending on student need. And then language is taken into account with that as well. So if you want to write down your name for information, we absolutely can share more specifics as needed. Great.
Okay. All right. I think this is our final question.
So just to also answer her, as far as like an in-person interpreter for meetings and things like that, you can request an in-person interpreter. Someone in your school building can make that request. There's an app. Okay, well, sorry.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask about the continuum of services, because I feel like we're kind of swinging on an extreme end of inclusion, and there are some students that inclusion may not be the best option, but also going into a very restrictive environment wouldn't be necessarily like something like ISDM, where they're certificate bound possibly. Where is there an in-between? Because we have a lot of students where we're like on the cusp and we're really struggling with placement that doesn't exist in the county.
That's a great question. I do want to clarify that, I guess, and just speak to the fact that we speak to a continuum of services in our system. We have strong services within the inclusive setting, and we have a lot of kiddos that are accessing that, but we also have kiddos that are accessing our regional programs. So we've heard a lot of conversation around our earliest learners and coming into schools for your 3s, 4s, and Ks, and folks have heard me say over and over that there continues to be outside of gen ed as necessary. That is part of the continuum of services. We also know that we want in our elementary schools, for a long time, we didn't have the opportunity to provide that continuum within our elementary schools. So it was inclusion or it was a regional program where our middle schools were able to provide that continuum along that. And now with a lot of professional learning and continued professional learning, as well as alignment of resources, we offer that continuum within our elementary schools in a much different way. And that's probably been over the last probably 5 or so years as far as building that out. But I want to be very clear that that continuum is a thing. We acknowledge that there are students that need different things at different times. And the other part of that is it shouldn't be a forever, right? It's the opportunity that based on student needs that we're able to fluctuate with regards to their needs to meet their needs at that time. So, you know, I think there's always, you know, kind of to the question earlier about eligibility, there's always different feelings about whether you want your child to be fully included with their peers or whether you're really looking for that more structured setting. But ultimately, it's an IEP team decision that you're part of, and our system is able to provide resources and supports across that continuum.
Yo como padre estoy preocupado por el trabajo que están haciendo ustedes, es grandioso y esta administración lo que quiere hacer es hacernos para atrás. Entonces no podemos permitir, nosotros como padres, ¿qué podemos hacer para que no le quiten el servicio a nuestros hijos y no quiten más terapistas? De por sí están sufriendo de terapia y de maestros ustedes que enseñan terapias. Entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer nosotros como padres con niños con discapacidad? Que sabemos que ellos son los que van a sufrir, no nosotros, sino ellos con los servicios que ya no van a tener.
I want to share my concern. You're doing a great job. You're working really, really hard, and you and your personnel. And what worries me as a parent is that this new administration is trying to remove what you're doing for my child. They are trying to remove the services, not only for my child, for our children. I want to know how me as a father can support you so we don't lose this, because this is really worrying me. We are going backwards instead of forward, and you have a plan to go forward. How can we support your plan?
Thank you very much, sir. Truly appreciate your kindness. And this is what these opportunities are about. You guys sharing directly with us what your experiences are, what are those areas that we still need to work on. We acknowledge that, you know, Baltimore County Public Schools for a long time was on a list that we don't want to be on with the State Department. One of the things that we did this year was relaunch our intensive compliance efforts because we were receiving notices about things that were simple to fix. We've invested in that professional development in the areas that you share feedback about what your students need. That helps us to make prioritize. But continuing to stay involved is going to make the difference. And when or if we get information indicating that there's significant changes, we will not only communicate to the community at large, but we will also create an opportunity to come and have a conversation. So to the extent that you access the resources that are provided, that you remain active and engage, I think that's what helps us to move forward, because the partnership that we have with families, we know that truly makes the difference, that this is not something that we can just do within the confines of the four walls of a school. We need that two-way communication. We need that partnership. We need to be able to be respectful and honest at the same time, to raise our hand and say, yes, we've made significant improvement in this area, but my situation, this is happening. I know of 2 parents who did that tonight, and I'm truly grateful, because those are things that can be fixed immediately. But when you share it with us, the people who are the staff members in the schools, as opposed to just, venting is a good thing, but just venting with others, that helps us to address the problem. So stay in communication with us, identify anything that you need. We will do our best to deliver that. And in terms of, that's how you can help us go forward, that we're gonna continue to stay committed to our mission of taking care of all students, and we will address the changes as they come. The only thing that is certain is change, and so we just have to be ready and prepared for whatever that means for our students, knowing that our priority is to the 111,000 students that we serve every day. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. With that, Dr. Rogers, Ms. Myers, would you like to make any closing remarks before we have folks head on home?
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We truly are committed to this work. We appreciate your grace as we continue to make improvements with special education. We acknowledge that there's a long way to go. But I want to thank also Dr. Rogers, the team that's here, our special education team that is here, work tirelessly to support your students, to support teachers, and they are also here. So I want to acknowledge our team around special education as well, our early childhood counterparts that are here, and everyone else that's in the space. But I do want to acknowledge our team. So thank you, families, for being here, for sharing with us, and have a fantastic night.
Yes, I echo the sentiments of Ms. Myers. Really excited that all of you came out. We appreciate you sharing with us. Please continue to communicate with us, and we will continue to do this work. Many more meetings to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Please don't forget to stop by our resource table. Kenya, could you wave your hand so they can see you? You can also fill out the feedback cards on the table, and we will come around and collect all of that information. Thank you all so much. Have a safe trip home, and we'll see you at our next community meeting.